In this video, we'll be looking at how to set up our print in our software to actually slice it and render it and get it ready for printing. So first thing we do, we put an SD card in our computer and we need to actually open our file. So we choose a file that we're wanting to print out. Here's something very basic, a little hook, and that will be brought up there. Now, if it's on a slower computer or if it's a very, very complex part with lots of facets, it may take a little while to load, and so you'll just need to wait for it. Now, if we right click with our mouse and hold that down, we can then drag around and actually look at the part from multiple different directions. That can be useful for working out where the overhanging parts is and what it actually looks like. Then we can click on the part with the left mouse button, and we have a few options there. We can scale it, so we can make it larger or smaller. Typically we avoid doing this because we actually want to do that in software and actually design that properly. If we click and hold the left mouse button, we can drag the part around. Typically near the center of the printer bed is a good place to have it though. The other part that we use a fair bit is rotation. And we click on rotation and click on one of these green ellipses there, which allow us to rotate it around in a particular direction. Typically, we'll want to put the largest face on of the part on the printer bed and have that largest face minimizing the amount of overhanging area. In particular, if this part was like this, we'd have a significant amount of overhanging area here and need a whole lot of support structure here to maintain that overhanging area. If we put it flat on the bed like that, we don't have that overhanging area anymore, and so we don't require the support structure anymore. Now we've got a few different infill options, and these allow us to choose how strong we want our print to be. So we can select hollow, which will print quite quickly, but it won't be very strong and there'll be nothing inside. Essentially, it will just be the outer shell. We can do light, and light will be a very fine hash that will provide a bit of strength there, but not all that much. Then we can select dense, and you'll notice that our time taken goes up from 56 minutes to an hour and 3 minutes. So our crosshatch inside our 3D print will be significantly smaller, and hence it will make the parts stronger. I typically leave it at light if I'm printing a non-structural part, or dense if I'm printing a structural part that I need to have a bit more strength. I've tested these before in our universal test machine downstairs, and with a small part this sort of size, you'll be able to support 100 kilos of compressive force on it, compressing down the layers here. And our final one is solid, which will take significantly longer but print it as a completely solid part. Now, one thing to remember with 3D printing is they're fairly strong when you're looking at compressive force, so compressing up this way, and fairly strong thinking about pulling it apart in this way or in this direction. But the weakest part of the 3D print of all is when we try and shear it, so a shear force across the layers, or pulling apart in this direction, which pulls apart some layers. That's the part where it's the weakest, and so if we've got a particular part that we're thinking about and trying to make it strong, we probably want to have that force lined up. So in this case, it's a hook. We have two holes there where we attach it to a wall. If we printed it up this way, the weakest part of this print is essentially in between the layers, which are built up layer by layer by layer by layer by layer by layer. This would be a bad way to print it besides the overhang, because if we put something on there, the shear force on this part here would be rather large. Whereas if we printed it this way, these layers are built up one by one by one by one. So essentially we've got something of a solid piece that flows all the way through there into this bracket part that attaches to the wall. Sure, this part here could break off. We could put an extra screw at the bottom to provide it with a bit more support. But this is the best way to print it in this case. Now, once we've done that, we can then select whether we want to generate a brim. A brim is basically a 1 centimeter border around the outside of the print that helps it adhere to the bed. Generally, I generate the brim. It takes a little bit extra time, but it minimizes the amount of warping you get where part of the edge of the print will lift up from the bed. The other option is generate support structure. And if we have an overhanging part, we may have some support structure that we require to do the overhanging here. So here we see it takes 2 hours and 31 minutes, in solid mode with the support structure on. We'll take it off and we'll see it will drop to 2 hours and 18 minutes because the area here doesn't require to be supported anymore. Now at the end, the support structure is basically snap away, or we use a little knife to cut that support structure away. So once we've specified what we want, so dense, generate brim, in this case no support structure, we put our SD card in and we can say save to removable drive. It'll export it to that removable drive. It says it's saved there. That might take a little while if it's a very big file. And then we can eject it and take it out and put it in our printer and start our print, which is what you'll see in the next video.